Hi everyone, welcome back. Nicole here with Edge of Wild, and I figured this evening would be a great time to do a garden tour. It is June 20th. I'm in upstate New York, northern New York, zone 4, borderline 3B, depends on the winter. But the good news is everything is planted. So I have planted every inch of the garden. Now, every possible inch, arguable, I could probably get away with sneaking some more stuff in, but everything is planted. So I finished the last succession of glads and sunflowers last night. So now we just need to do, fingers crossed, that everything grows and flowers start blooming. I am watering the garden now because we haven't had rain. We had rain this weekend. We haven't had rain in like 3 days, but now we're hanging out in the 80s for temperature. It's nice and humid, so it's warm. The plants are all looking for a drink, especially the sunflower seedlings that are finally up. So to start, here in the entryway, I have a random caladium. I have a lot of weeds, but I'll catch up on those. I have this silver tip triticale that's going to be part of my fall foliage with my sunflowers, hopefully is the plan. I have volunteer caladiums. The spot's empty. I threw a couple sunflower seeds in there. We'll see if any of those come up. Here is my first succession of sunflowers, looking good. Then I have my second succession of sunflowers, also looking really good. And then here is the next succession of sunflowers. These look pretty good. They're slightly ahead of the succession that I planted a week later, but not as far ahead as I think I would like them to be. I think the lack of rain, and I really think it's the lack of rain that slowed them down. I did not lose quite as many as I thought I did. Germination looks pretty spotty here in the first part of this bed, but the second part of it looks honestly pretty good. I think I am missing like this whole outside row, which I picked up. I put a couple seeds in, but live and learn. What I've learned is need to cover sunflower seeds. That way when they germinate, they have a chance. And then the next succession actually looks really good. So everything's popping up. I think the rain really helped, but I think having them covered with the rain helped hold a little bit more moisture so that everything could germinate so well. So these will be big and huge before we know it. The Mahogany Splendor Hibiscus is looking good down here, putting on some height. Looking like it's going to start branching here pretty soon. I hear that those get like 2 by 4 foot. We'll see. I don't know. If that's the case, that they're way too close together, but first year, so experimenting. Here I have acorn squash. That one plant looks pretty sad, but I think it's going to hold on. And these other ones look pretty good. This looks empty, but I promise there are glads there. Where I finished putting the last succession. Here is last week's, and they are just starting to pop through. Then I have the week prior, and then the week before that. So glads are looking phenomenal. I have a ton of volunteer glads down here where the old ones are as well. This is the Aggerarium. Looking kind of sad. I think it needs more water, so getting water now. Definitely has some stem length on it that I think is going to be usable. It appears to be branching, so we'll see if that keeps up. Then I have beans. These are golden beans. They germinated great the first time. And then these were green beans, and they did not. So I put a whole bunch more seed in. Looks like germination was better this time around, so I don't know if the seedlings were attacked, because it's all the same seed. or the conditions weren't right. It's very possible. So they look way better now. Glad that I decided to resow them, even if those ones are farther behind. Here are tomatoes. So these are the Mountain Fresh Determinate variety. I need to come through, prune this stuff off the ground, cut this off the ground down here. Because these are a determinate variety, I will probably prune these lower suckers here, but it's as far as I'm going to go on pruning. I won't prune the suckers out of this one as it grows up the trellis, and they're almost to the point of being able to attach them. Another Mountain Fresh. This one's looking pretty good. Definitely have some suckers I need to get cleaned out. I swear there was a tomato here. I still haven't looked back, but I swear there had to have been. So the biggest thing on tomatoes at this point is I need to come prune them up and start training them up to the trellis. Get them attached, but they're all looking really healthy. I've got buds on this one. So those will be some fruit here pretty soon. See, I know the ones down at this end are the striped German, because I remember putting them down here. Buds here. Look at the flower. There we go. There's a flower. Future tomato. So everything's looking pretty good on those rows. Cherry tomatoes. So volunteer sunflower plant. I just don't have the heart to pull it, so it's going to live there. Here are cherry tomatoes. They also have blooms on them. Need to get them tied to the trellis. They're just a lot leggier of a tomato in general. Cherry tomatoes are, so. Oh, I think we have a baby tomato. We do. Right there. And it is the indigo one, which makes sense. They always seem to have their fruit on them first. Not necessarily ripen first, but they always seem to have their fruit on them first. But yeah, got to get this trained up to the trellis and out of the snapdragons. I'll also clean those up a little bit, at least the bottoms around the snapdragons, because I want good airflow. This here is my feverfew. Lots is looking good. Snapdragons, we're starting to put on buds. Thank goodness some of them really shot up for stem length, because I do have some blooms down here. However, like, even if I cut that all the way down to the bottom, it's really not a usable stem unless I did like a mason jar arrangement. So the rest of them are looking good. I have to look up. I wonder if this is the butterfly. I almost think this is the Madame Butterfly pink. I think so, because they are a lot more ruffly. Which would make sense why the stem length isn't great, because that's usually what everyone says about the Madame series. And my semi-fail, semi-success of ranunculus. So, starting to get some blooms. We'll see if they open up and look good, or if the heat here this week will stress them back out and they'll kind of fizzle again. But at least I got a couple blooms. What I'll do is I'll let the foliage die back on these, and I'll save the corms, and I'll try again next year. I have some more feverfew here, and then I have asters. So these are all asters in here. I am starting to get some blooms. They most certainly do not seem to appreciate the sun. This one's really pretty. This is one of the apricot ones. Stems are too short to use still, so some of these are taller. I'm hoping they continue to get taller. It looks like they branch. Again, experimenting with this one, so I'm not 100% certain. I don't need them all to flower at once though, so I'm good with some of them that are taking a little bit longer. Here on this side of the trellis, I have one Kajari melon still trying. They did not transplant well. Oh, I think I see one. I see one. So that the pumpkins that I lost earlier this week, specifically like the gourds and stuff, this should be another sowing of gourds. That is the first sign of germination I have seen from them at all. Otherwise, it is totally empty here. So I'm hoping they germinate because I would really like to have some gourds. Then I have status? Yes. A whole bunch of status. The plants do get huge, so I think I planted them too close together, but live and learn. We will see how they end up flowering. Hopefully it'll push them to have longer stem length because they're competing so much. Either that or it's going to choke each other out. But it should choke out the weeds for the most part, so there's that benefit. Definitely reduces weeding. There's some blooms. Oh, there's some baby status. Here, my garlic scapes are coming on. Need to cut them. These are great. You like cut them, saute them in like some olive oil, just like you would like sauteing green beans or anything. And they taste just like garlic green beans. I absolutely love them. Guess that will make the dinner menu for the rest of the week. I have a little bit more feverfew here. I pulled the spinach because it had definitely all bolted. Look at my monstrous wall of peas. This is like a 4-foot wall of peas. And they're all blooming. Looking lovely. Gorgeous. I also have, look at this. I have some radish blooms. So all my radishes are definitely spent. Like, those are very hard skinned, very woody, very cracked. However, right now they make awesome weed control. So I am not pulling them yet. I will before they set seed because I don't need to do that. Also, radishes get really, like, look at this one. Radishes get prickly. Like, all those bumps on the stem there, those are all prickers. So just so you know, radishes will get very prickly. But you could let these seed heads develop all the way, flower, and then you would have a ton of radish seed. So you could save that. Maybe I'll let a couple go and give it a try. Onions, I finally got those weeded. They look great. They're putting on a lot of size. Doing well here by the peas. I think I have a couple of the sweet onions because they're way more fussy. A little stressed out. But looking good regardless. This is more feverfew. Then I have my beets here, which are so-so. Something keeps eating them, like chewing them off on the bottom and killing off plants. What exactly is doing it, I am not certain. I am sure it is a bug of some sort. But I have enough beets in there for me. I don't usually can them. I usually roast them and eat them that way. The other thing going over here is my potatoes. And my potatoes are all starting to get their buds on them to flower. So they are growing well. I did get another bale of straw. I'll back up and show you. And I heavily mulched them again, just to help cover any of the potatoes. That way, if any of the tubers form closer to the top of the soil, they'll still be covered and not get light, so I don't have to worry about them getting the green on them that makes them poisonous. But I'm loving the potato patch this year. It's looking really good. I'm excited to have so many different varieties. Here I have celosia and a handful of the marigolds that spilled over to this side. More celosia. I really need to come and like pinch these so that they keep they start making branches for me. I did come through and pinch all of my annual phlox. Although it looks like I missed a couple. Yes, because this one's flowering. Annual phlox, from what I read and understand, you want to pinch actually a couple times. Probably like 3 times to get them to get the stem length. I have one random snapdragon. We'll see what that turns out to be. This over here is blue plerum, and it has started to change immensely from what I planted. So I'll show you some younger blue plerum, and you can see, like, look at how thick that stem is. Like, that's a hardy looking plant right there. And I swear when I planted it, it was this flimsy looking thing. So excited to see what this all turns out to be. There's 2 successions here. Kind of looks like they've caught up to each other. So probably they'll end up roughly the same. Here are some more gourds and or little pumpkins that germinated wonderfully. I'm going to give them a little bit. Make sure I know which ones I'm going to keep and which ones I'm going to thin out. Here's the worst weed ever. This is like wild morning glory. I hate it. It pulls out easily, but it's everywhere. Everywhere. Down here, my straw flowers. I think they're loving the hot, dry weather. They look pretty happy. Marigolds. This yellow, the first succession of yellows are blooming like crazy. I honestly probably also need to, I beheaded some of them, but I think I need to behead a whole bunch more so that they kind of start branching out. I have a couple of the cocoa golds that are blooming. Lesson I have learned, I will start marigolds later next year. Because I can't have them all flowering way early like this. Here are Rudbeckia. These ones are looking good. My yarrow has started to flower for the year. That one's probably could be used. I wish I had some other flowers to feature with it, because I think it would be, it's really starting to come in nice. And I've got a whole array of colors from yellows, got some terracotta over there, pinks, both light and dark. And I know I'll have wild yarrow, which is always white for me, that I can use here pretty soon. This is the sage flowering out. It would make awesome in a bouquet. The only problem is, like, you have to be someone that likes herbs, because they're intensely smelly. This sea holly looks so much better this year. I should prune out the sage that's running it over. I have spit bugs that are trying to live in it, but it's starting to make buds, and now it definitely has far more usable stems. A couple more per plant. So I think next year I'm going to get some more seed. That seems like it's going to be something that's going to be perennial, and I'm going to have to kind of stick with planting it and waiting a little bit. Here's some Sweet Williams. Stems are kind of too short to use currently. I kind of have my fingers crossed that this is going to perennialize too. We shall see. That's my hope. This is the bed that needs to be weeded the most. Here are delphiniums for this year. Hoping these will perennialize, because they're like, this stem might be usable in a mason jar arrangement. I have a whole bunch of volunteer tomatoes. I've considered moving one of these to the empty tomato spot up there, just because I don't want an empty spot. More Rudbeckia that's looking really good. Also needs to be weeded. It's thinking about putting on a flower. Down here is zinnias. They're packed out nice and full. Honestly, I need to come through this first succession, I think, and pinch them all. That is what I should do, so that they could branch out and get nice and thick. Volunteer potatoes, and I just can't bring myself to pull it, because, I just can't do it. There's one here. Well, I think there's two there. And one over there. This is my next succession of zinnias. And you can see this one is struggling with what I struggle with all the time with zinnias. And that is bug damage. I'm not even 100% sure what kind of bug. I really don't know. Usually the only thing I can ever do that works is put diatomaceous earth on them. Which is probably what I need to come do so I don't lose that whole succession of them. Here are ones that I started outside from seed. You can see they have some of that bug damage. And honestly, I think I've lost a couple. And if you don't do anything, you lose them all. The germination over there hasn't been quite as good, / again, I think something's eating them. A couple more I started inside from seed. Here is my next succession of sunflowers planted underneath, well, planted and then covered because life lesson, cover them. Here is basil. I have lemon basil and then I have a purple basil. More feverfew. Much later successions of that. I believe these are the Ancash cucumbers. I think. Watch, I'll be totally wrong. But that's what I think those are. Over here, dahlias are coming up and they look awesome. Poppies look wonderful. They definitely should have been thinned, but you know what? Not gonna worry about it. And so like here's some of the blue plume. This is like my last sowing of it. And like look how flimsy the original stem of that looks. And it turns into like this massively thick plant. I've never grown blue plume before, so I'm excited to see this grow. Over here I have lilies. And I've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, maybe 16 of the 18 that I planted that I can tell are coming up. So these ones have been up for a while. These ones are just starting to poke through. They're planted a little bit late, so I'm not 100. I'm hoping they bloom this year. They should also perennialize here. That's kind of why I put them on that outer edge of the bed. Rest of the sunflower succession, covered that up till that germinates. Here are my Brussels. This is what Brussels sprouts are supposed to look like. Not what I thought I planted as Brussels last year that turned out to be celery. But these are growing right along. Definitely it's going to be time to start feeding them some nitrogen. They are a very, very heavy feeder. And honestly, you need to find a nice nitrogen fertilizer to feed them with, is what I have found works the best. Here is some celery. Most of the celery did not like the cold weather and like died back. Almost, but then it sent out all this new growth. It looks awesome. This is lettuce that needs to be pulled because it has gone very bitter. But it did head up pretty nicely. I haven't pulled it kind of for 2 reasons. 1, weed suppression. I like anything that'll suppress weeds. And 2, I just haven't done it. Cal's looking really good. I can definitely be harvesting some of this. And then my cabbage. This is the best cabbage that I myself have ever grown. So I'm very proud of it. I have a couple of heads that are, like this one's getting pretty well chewed on. That one's kind of funky shaped, but otherwise, doing good. This is where I replanted some cucumber seeds. And it looks like I have 1 plant here and 4 or 5 over there. So, we'll see if those come up. I have not had a great cucumber year since like the first year I had cucumbers in here. Carrots, I did get these weeded out. I think I had them weeded out the last time. They're looking really good. Something happened with the soil. It's the only explanation I can come up with that like this whole section is bare. But I have plants back there. I have plants all the way in the front over here. It's just this one section. And I planted the strips of them, like, running lengthwise. So, like, seeds at the back half of them germinated and seeds at the front half didn't. So I don't think it's the seed. I think it has to be the ground. I don't know if the compost was too, like, nitrogen rich, too hot when they came up here or what. Dill. That is dill that was here. That is dill that I planted. Once you have dill, you'll always have dill. More cucumbers. Those ones I'm pretty positive are the Yankash. Summer squash, or not summer squash. Zucchini. And I don't know if that is just the plant or if I'm already dealing with, might be a nutrient deficiency of some sort. Might be the plant, don't know. More volunteer dill. Got the same thing going on in this hill. That's why I kind of wonder if it's the plant. Also zucchini. And then this is summer squash. And this is desperate for nitrogen. So I'm going to feed that plant some nitrogen fertilizer. These leaves just keep yellowing out terribly. So that plant definitely needs some help. Okay, and that is a look of everything that is in the garden for June 20th. It's crazy to me to think, especially like that side. That side's brand new. That side was grass. It was goat pasture last year. And now it's tilled. It's raked into rows. It's got irrigation, which I've had soaker hoses, but I've never had irrigation like this that is awesome. And it's filled up with flowers. And I cannot wait to share them with my community. And I'm just totally shocked by how well it is doing. This side looks great, flowers and the veggies. But this side, it didn't seem like as big of a lift to take an established garden and plant it. It just takes a while. But to take a totally brand new space of equal size, I just blown away. Very excited with how everything looks. Excited to share it all. And I'm hoping that keeping these gardening tours or journals kind of can really help me look back at any point in time. Remember notes like, hey, start your marigolds later, and probably your snapdragons too. Can really help me. So that way I don't have to write them all down. I can just go look at them all again all this winter. But I love being able to see the progress because it has changed immensely. I swear I go away for like 2 days and come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the growth. Look at this. It's just shocking. So fingers crossed for a whole lot of flowers to come out of here. I have a wedding to supply in July. I have 4 CSA Flower Club members, and then just bouquets to do along the way, hopefully a roadside stand, things like that, and I just can't wait to bring all of you guys along with me. Thanks for joining, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.